this starts to produce thought.
So the other question that I had, and then I will leave it open in case you guys have more questions or things that you want to discuss, was Zarin wanted to know, like comparing the movement of grace from like the Old Testament to in the New Testament with what we were just looking at. It's very interesting that in Aramaic, there's actually 3 different words for grace. One of them is very much connected to the Hebrew word chen or chanan. But you will find this is what's so amazing, because I hadn't actually looked at this. So Zarin, thank you for bringing this question up. So I got super excited when I saw this. It starts out with a hen. It's hen, noon, or het, noon, noon, aleph. But when you pronounce it, it's chanana, chanana. Now, the reason why that is so fantastic, sorry, it's not chanana, it's chanan, it's chanan. There we go. The Aramaic word for I, as in I am, is okay, back up, Carrie. Wow. Rewind that all the way back. Okay, let's try that again. I can tell I'm getting tired. Hanana. It is Hanana. Okay, Hanana. The reason why this is so fantastic is that the word I am is Ana, Aleph, Nun, Aleph. I am in Hebrew is Aleph, Hey, Yod, Hey, which is the Haya, to be, to come to pass, the Aleph that has separated itself out into 2 frequencies of the masculine and feminine, because we got divided into the light and the dark, that are connected to the Yod. But by the time we come to Aramaic and this word for grace, it's Ana. I am grace. That's how it would sound. I am grace. In other words, grace is race of people, as I am. So now the Hays are no longer in the revelation of, they are now absolute established with a new seed of life in the center of being, that are grace's new race of people that are established as I am grace. So Zarin, thank you, because I saw that and it just gave me chills to realize that the morphing of being able to intertwine both of these frequencies of masculine and feminine energy, because literally as it's spelled, it's het aleph with 2 noons on the inside. So you go from one seed to the next seed, but it becomes I am grace's race. I am the absolute grace.
There is such a lofty word and such, I mean, in this breakdown, if it's het, noon, noon, olive, it's really a double measure of arisen. It's like progeny begets progeny. Life produces progeny. If progeny is matured correctly, then progeny will produce the measure of one resolve. It's that kind of a language. It's why in the end that they say that they will say grace, grace. It's the same as Kathleen's card. It's saying really the same thing. It's morphed out a little bit from center or balance, but really it's saying the same thing. Grace is the place where honor begets honor. Grace begets grace. It's saying I'm the equation of center, saying the same thing.
So another way that we could look at this, when we were connecting that last word that we were looking at, and it was showing the mirror perspective, the mirror of projecting. This word is grace, het, noon, noon, but they both are risen. In the Hebrew perspective, one is risen and one is lower. One is in a higher dimensional state, the other one is in the lower. And the mirror perspective is you as self-being projecting your fallen nature on another. When it comes to the Aramaic side of it, both natures are elevated. So in other words, everything that I see within me, I see with you from an elevated position, because it's all been unified into oneness unity, which is the absolute, which is love. Love with no conditions. So therefore, there is no judging element of the mirror when it becomes this form of the word grace. Hence why grace's race will not have that judgmental side. They will already see everyone else as in that risen state of being as the absolute essence of one.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so amazing.
To comprehend grace in totality is such a lofty concept that it's pillar language, which goes right to El, which goes right to God, right? Because like Carrie was saying, that if it has a drop leg, it has to be expressed by experience of journey through the earth. There's no way around grace. We have to know what it is. It's why we came here. Our whole return, we fell from grace to return to grace. That's the journey from good to evil, or from evil to good, from ill to well. That's the whole process. Is we came from that measure of extreme grace as one resolve, separated into two components for the purpose of expressing its journey to fulfill it back to the standing order again. And so this language of pillar is like, grace is founded on the principle for what it stands. The foundation is critical for the crown to be set. What the contents is in between. This is where we are right now. The foundation is already established. We have to stand on that measure to fulfill its potential. That's the contents of the pillar. This is load bearing. This is what we're all doing right now, of learning how to extend a measure to ourselves to fulfill the completion or the intention of returning back to grace as a family. It's the same word for trust, and it's the same word for honor. It's vibrating at a very, very lofty frequency, but it doesn't make it not attainable. It's totally attainable, and it's
by the work and the deed of our own hand,
right.
Which is the other form of grace that we talked about today, about Tebutha.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, the grace measure that we were talking about today, Tebutha, where it was translated as grace, is the same word that all the Beatitudes start with. So blessed is he who, or blessed is the meek, and they shall inherit the earth. That whole B, interesting, is called the Beatitudes. Well, B, haya, to be, to come to pass, or ana, or enana, which is the I within the I, meaning the I that is in the collective as I, is really all connected into being, the being attitudes. Tebutha, grace's race.
Yeah.
The only other word for it is shofra, or and the root of it is shin pei resh. This word, and this is the last word for grace, and hopefully that answers your questions, Aaron, about the different forms of grace and where they move and the essence of it. This is shin pei resh, and it's the same root word for shofar. The trumpet blast, the ram's horn. And this is the same thing. It's the measure of grace, but it's shin pei resh, the fiery fruit, or the fruit of fire. So this grace element, or those who are producing fire within, they have consumed everything that they need to, but they really have become a measure of the seraphim, hence why it's a permutation of seraph. It's Sefer. So you guys know what permutation is, right? The letters are changed orders, but the frequency is still there. So seraph is shin resh pei. This word for grace is shin pei resh. The reason why that movement happened is that grace, so a seraph, as they are speaking, is coming and speaking graceful words, grace-filled words that are loving kindness, because the pei is from the center of their being. It's in the center of the word. That which comes out of their heart, they are speaking in loving kindness as grace-filled. And they will be fiery words. So make no mistake, they might burn and sting a little bit, but it is coming through with loving kindness and grace, as grace is pressure to change in order to bring fruit in your life. And it's connected to the shofar blast. So by the way, when it talks about the last trump, the word that is utilized in there is shofar. It's connected to grace. It's connected to loving kindness. And so that's the other element that is added in the three words for grace used in the New Testament Aramaic. So there's a broader ability there, simply because both energies are present. Both energies are accepted, both energies are adopted, and then make the full manifestation within the essence of being, which allows us to have that creative fire of the masculine and energy ignite us, going from cherubim to the seraphim as the burning ones. Hopefully that answered question there, Zarin, on that.
There's so much in.
Could have gone down a lot more on that one, but that would be another hour, and I don't have it in me today to do another hour.
Yeah, grace is a big one, because it's totality. You can't separate grace without connecting it to honor, and honor has to be met as a legal tender. It's like entering a courtroom. To confront a judge as your honor, you must know the way of law, because it's the place of exchange. It's looking for us to resonate to what it's asking. It's conditions that fulfill its order as a witness would see, so a witness would say, right? This is the right stand of Melchizedek. And in that order of standing, if it's seen correctly, then it's offering its seat, which is honors Grace's seat. It's the same frequency. And so, because courtroom and trumpet are shared.
That's a word called choser, just to let you know. It's choser, and it's literally the word for trumpet. It's not shofar,
Right.
And it means court as well.
Mm-hmm. An ancient trumpet.
Yep.
But
which is choser, which is het zadi resh, zur, the cramped and confined place, but it brings forth life. So that trumpet, right, it's already life-giving.
Yep. So everything's connected to everything.
Yep.
I'd like to add just a little bit to that too. It's like what Ken was saying. It's that high lofty position when we can raise ourselves up into that I am presence. It's like the prodigal leaving the home. We never really left. If we get a hold of that idea that where we exist is that place of perfection and all of that. So there really is no ego. There really has never been an ego. When we can get to that place, then when somebody is coming at us from ego, and they're challenging us or attacking us in some verbal form or something we're doing or whatever, when we have ourselves up in that position, we can know ego attacks, but love extends. Out of our extension, we can see them in their wholeness. And so as they're potentially talking to us, we can hear them the same as maybe a little child would say, goo goo gaga. When we hear a child say goo goo gaga, our first reaction is not to come at them. That's not proper language and you shouldn't be talking. We're not coming at them. We can just lovingly see them as that is part of their process of coming up to understand how to communicate and how to use language. We can extend to them grace, not attack back, because we are projecting onto them where they truly are. From where we are, we can project onto them where we are, and now we're not responding in kind. We're responding out of love. That's a high, lofty position to get to this point. And that is extending grace, seeing them for who they really are, because we see ourselves who we really are, and we have no need to attack after that. And even if they do attack, we can see it as they're just learning through their processing too how to communicate and how to talk. It's nothing to come at them. So in the coming days, we may have people coming at us really hard. And we got to learn to project onto them the wholeness that they are from the wholeness that we are. Grace.
Very good. I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm totally glad that you brought that up. I love hearing you guys in your perspectives and how you're taking this information and how you know it to be and sharing it from your heart. It means a lot because it's not, again, this is about us here, not just Ken and I. It's about us and what is being seen and shared through the heart of all of us here. I know that there are certain elements of ministries out in the world that are strong masculine energy, and anything of the feminine nature is going to be seen as antichrist very, very, very strongly. The scripture that I always come back to in my mind in the English translation, you probably should look at it at some point, is you will know them for their love for one another. And I can already tell you, there's that word tell. I can already share with you one another has the combination of kal and chad, kaf lamed, and then het dalet. And het dalet is one or only, oneness, and chal is whole, totality, completion, but is also the word for bride and crown. So in other words, their love for one another is going to be the completed bride that has entered into life, delivering themselves from all of separation. So how will they be able to determine or distinguish the difference of those who have and those who have not transmuted, those who are of the anointing versus those who are not? Because again, duality, right? In actuality, we are all anointed. It's only our diminished thinking that separates us. You know, if we see ourselves as already the completed beings that we are, then there is no diminishing, and we are all anointing. It's just our stinking thinking through the ego that diminishes and says we're separate, or that we're not good enough, or we limit our abilities based on what we have thoughts of. Doesn't mean they're true. It just means a lot of that is diminished based upon our past, and not our current place of being. So, you know, in that regard, if those others that are really of ourselves try to come against a message or our state of being, we will have the ability to hold our ground, because we will actually see them in what you shared, in a state of being where they still haven't quite risen up into that mature state as of yet. That's why, hence the goo goo gaga, their speech isn't really matching the essence of who they truly are. It's just diminished. They're still in that infantile or adolescent state of needed validation. And because we're coming from a place as having been validated now into invalidation, is going to be quite a rub, where there's that need of having everything external to validate the presence of their being now. And we're moving past that, in order to help them rise up and be able to be in that place of validation.
Yeah,
it's a very, very lofty place, like you said.
Yeah.
And that's where Huba, it's where we bridge the gap between Rakam and Huba. So Rakam is the loving kindness that raises them up into life by meeting them at their heart level, so that eventually they can get into Huba, which that word, Chabab, ends in the Aleph. If they're not there yet, we can only express through Rakam to lift them up. So as they come and attack through loving kindness, Rakam, we lift them up, seeing the life that is within them and not listening to their subjective words that they project.
But that has to
And
be,
I see you, Kathleen.
that has to be stewarded, though,
Yeah,
because again, a lot of us, we can weaponize ego when it's seen from the stance of immaturity, because ego, it just gets a bad name. But really, if we reframe that like everything, then ego is untouched, because ego only came by the separation, and it just means I'm not refined, right? In innocence, we can collapse it to say, I'm father unrefined, and to fulfill me, you're gonna have to validate mother, because I need to be invalidated.
Right.
I can render that down really quick.
Right.
And so ego is really father seeking validation through mother to express itself in the fullness of invalidation. Now you have ego redefined as married through validation, living the same spot. And so this is the experience. And in that, but once upon a time in our immaturity, we handle people solely based on where we were in our current moment. And so immaturity handles immaturely, right? And so we pass judgment, we reflect based on where we are, and we cause much damage to not just ourselves, but to another family member potentially, based on our insecurities of separation. And so the loving part of this is, and I mean, this is why just like it makes my knees quiver a little bit, is depth of revelation. When it reveals, we can transmute all that fracture, and now we can assist from a greater perspective. Now we're not seeking validation, because we know that the greater is in validation. That's equating ego as fully resolved. And so now we can assist from a whole different perspective and realize that ego is only but a force potential to push us into the greater narrative.
And the only reason why we would have a reaction
Rightly
would
defined.
would be if we were taking things personal. And any time that we take something personal, then we know that we've shifted into ego.
Then you've dropped it down a gear.
Into the self.
Now you've dropped it down again into mother, and because
right.
but that's a great, this is a subject object, right? If you
gotta recognize it.
You can recognize it, because as soon as you see it, this is the power in this. Now that if you can share the frequency, it puts you in perspective to now, because I can promise you this, because of what's being shared, it will most likely test all of us in its resolve. This is the power of magic. Mm-hmm. And so when we recognize, okay, then something will approach and we'll handle it a certain way, and right, wrong, or a different subject object. But if we subject ourselves to it, we just realize, oh my goodness, there's that moment again of what Zarin and Lee were talking about. We drop down a gear. Oh, it needs to express itself for what? For resolve, because something is still not resolved. It's only an opportunity. And in that level of knowing, Todah Rabbah. grief to gratitude for the opportunity to express, because it's trying to do its best to point me in the higher narrative or the higher frequency of what lofty is. It needs to marry itself as a law. And so we can drop down a gear, and then we can see it, subject, object, reframe,
Transmute it.
reconstitute, and then
Heal that essence of shadow.
and then ask for another opportunity for a testing in our resolve of current moment, and it will present itself. And then if
And
you're
then
successful in that,
if there's nothing left in that area,
Mhm.
then you would not take it personal.
right, it would just be, again,
Just be an is
you're
thing.
watching as the observer, you're
Yeah.
watching yourself experience an opportunity for that which you already know.
So then you're in the place of Huba that has to present itself as Rakam to those who are still in the subjective state of being.
So again, absolutely, this is
Yeah.
really powerful.
Yeah.
So be aware of our surroundings, because I can not promise you this, but I would expect this myself, that it will present itself to exactly extrapolate out this level of knowing for all of us, because this is what family would do. Like we're compassionately coming around about for the fullness of love to express itself in totality. That's a balanced center.